Hi there, I'm Pastor Brian, and it's time for Questions from Kids. Beth from Topeka, Kansas asks,
I did some things I know are wrong, and I told God I was sorry, but I still feel guilty. Does God always forgive?
Beth, we see God's forgiveness today in the Bible story, don't we? We see that David had sinned with Bathsheba, and some time had passed. Actually, it could have been about a year. And David is confronted by Nathan. God sends Nathan to go talk to David, and Nathan points out how David had sinned so long ago. And what did David do? He confessed his sin. He said he was sorry. And then we see that God forgave him completely. Even though all that time had passed, God is a forgiving God. That's what we see in this account. Now, here's the thing. We know that God forgave David because God knew what he would do for that sin, that he would send Jesus to pay for that sin and every other sin that David had committed. And that is why God accepted David's repentance. And that's why he accepts ours as well. So when we sin, if we've trusted in God, all of our sin is forgiven. All the sin that we've committed before, all the sin that we will commit, it's all forgiven by God. That's why when we sin, what we want to do is we want to confess that sin, telling God that we know we've messed up, we know we've done something wrong, but then we quickly recognize that we are forgiven of that sin, that God has given us Jesus to pay for that sin. That's why we don't have to feel guilty about it. That's why we don't have to feel like we have to do something to earn God's forgiveness back because of that sin. No, it's already been dealt with by Jesus on the cross. This should give us great joy. So when we sin, we ask God for forgiveness, we understand He's forgiven us, that gives us joy so that we live from that day forward turning away from sin. Not wanting to continue to sin knowing that we're forgiven, but instead wanting to live for God joyfully, gratefully, because all of our sin is forgiven because He's such a good God. So here's a question. Why do you think it can be so difficult for us to believe we are fully forgiven by God?